Today's meeting is our old friend Dennis. Dennis is a member of the Mac user group. Dennis, I think everybody knows exactly pretty much what your topic is. And we welcome you back and thank you very much for being here.
Thanks, George. Welcome, everybody. It's good to see you all again. Some new faces. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Dennis DiGiacomo. My company is MDP Studios. Been with Apple Computer now for almost 32 years. Field tech for them, but I also have a cyber defense company, which is Griffin Force. You guys heard from my business partner, Kerry Kursky, last week on a lot of different things, especially when it came to identity theft, fraud, and I think the COVID-19 scams that are out there. So today's topics, we're going to talk a little bit on a couple different things, some privacy, some VPN. A lot of it's not going to be major detail because, especially when we get to the VPN stuff, there's a lot of information, a lot, research would have to go into looking up a lot of these different companies and who's really worthy and who isn't. I give you some key things to look for and some disadvantages of VPNs, as well as, ones that I recommend over others, just because it's, there's a lot of name brand ones out there you guys see advertisements for, and those are the ones we're going to try to avoid if we can. So I'll take questions along the way. So if anybody has any questions, I think Sheeta's going to take care of that for us. But definitely I'll stay as long as you like to answer all the questions you need. We're going to bounce around a little bit, but it's just giving you some updates in the industry with some things going on. So whenever you're ready, I can start the show.
Go ahead. Thank you very much. Thanks for being here.
Sure. All right. Everybody see that so far?
Yep.
All right, cool. All right, so basically we're going to go over a bunch of just different tidbits on different things, but it's kind of a quick overview here with the outline. We're definitely going to talk about privacy, your digital footprint briefly. There's a warning out there from Facebook. Some of you may have already found this issue, heard about it, and actually resolved it. For those who don't know anything about it, I'm going to tell you and help keep you a little safer with Facebook. We'll talk about VPNs, whether to use them or not use them, and then if you do use them, who would be a better fit company than others. Excuse me. We're going to talk about the 5G and even 6G networks that are coming out from all our big providers and what's going on behind the scenes with that. And then some buying tips for accessories and peripherals. And the reason why I want to include that is I've seen a lot of the different questions from a lot of MUG members coming by daily about, should I get a powered hub, non-powered hub? Should I get, what do I buy, what do I not buy? So this way it'll help you find what's a knockoff, what's not a knockoff, what's a reputable brand that I would recommend you buy and have better luck with. So with further ado, we'll move forwards. So computer privacy. Well, you all know that the big tech giants out there are always trying to find a way into your personal lives. And by doing that, they do it many unforeseen ways. And a lot of times you don't even know they're doing it. One, it's a matter of national security, global health. Look at the COVID-19 stuff now. They're thinking about, trying to find a way to monitor us all better. You've heard Apple and Google, both are working on a way to make the iPhones and other units they have, even the iPads, other tablets out there that will actually track whether or not you were close to somebody with COVID or not, and whether or not you should quarantine yourself or not. So just things like that are popping up, unbeknown to us. Social media is, definitely a lot of people have Facebook and Twitter and all these different accounts, Instagram and Pinterest. And, a lot of times people fall for things and don't even realize they've done that. Home automation, a lot of folks have gotten into that with the Alexas and things. There's video surveillance everywhere. HIPAA rules are being violated. We don't even know that. Facial recognition and mining for questionnaires is the biggest one, because on Facebook, how many times does someone says, hey, share your high school photo, or what year did you graduate, or what's the name of your first dog? What kind of dog did you have? Where was your first trip? These are things that are often security questions for a lot of your different accounts, banking and many things alike, investment accounts, and even your email. So what you're doing is, by answering that, you're just allowing people to gather data behind the scenes about you and actually find an easier way to get a hold of your passwords, and because your username is usually your email address, so half the equation is already done. The big problem nowadays is the lack of standards. Not everybody is following the same rules or protocols, or they don't keep up with them as technology moves forwards. The biggest problem with your privacy right now is the human factor. So at the end of the day, as we talk later, you can have the best VPN in the world. You can have Fort Knox, the best built safe ever made, on land. However, somebody still has to service that safe. A locksmith company still has to come out twice a year to do service. So whether you're that 5-star general with the highest security clearance that our country offers to get in and out of that safe, so does the locksmith guys down the street to do service on it. So the human factor often is what causes the biggest problems for us, because you're hoping that people will be trustworthy and honest with all our stuff. Because computers don't lie and cheat. At the end of the day, it's the person sitting behind the desk that will. So that's just something to keep in mind. And the more we play online, the more we get involved with different things. And like we said, social media in general, we create a digital footprint for ourselves. And so nowadays we want everything everywhere all the time at our disposal, whether it's our iPad, our iPhones, our computers, wherever we're at. I mean, we're talking our emails, our texts, bookmarks, documents, data, pictures, videos, all that stuff's in the cloud these days. Doesn't have to be necessarily Apple's iCloud, but there's Dropbox, there's Box.com, there's Google G Suite. There's a lot of stuff out there our data's in. And so we're creating this digital footprint with our stuff all over the place so we can see it on our devices and have it at quick access at our hands. The problem is at some point, these things will be breached and then have problems for us down the road. And, you've heard about the GDPR, the General Data Protection Regulations that, Europe is big into and Apple's adopted and so have others. It's great, but people still have to follow the rules. And if they don't follow rules about keeping you safe and your data safe, then what good is it? Facebook changes the rule book every single day. They have their own agendas. Because remember, they're still a private company, but we all get to play for free. And that's the key word. We all get to play Facebook for free. So keep that in mind. And since we're talking about Facebook, they have this new thing called the Off Facebook Activity Portal. And they talked about it in the end of last year. And there were some news reports about it in January. But basically, February 1st, 2020, Facebook brought up an area that, so think of it this way. Some of you use Facebook, some of you don't, and that's fine. I was out of Facebook a long time because I didn't like what it did in when it first came out, what it did to me. So I stayed away for a while because I'm a cyber guy. But after a while, you have to claim your digital footprint. So now my way of thinking is you got to get out there, make a claim for yourself, but then also lock it down and police it the best you can and what they allow us to do. But what's going on now with Facebook is, let's just say, even when you're not using Facebook, it's keeping tabs on you. That's the easiest way to say it. And that's what's happening. So I gave an example down here, and we used Jerry King in my example. This is how Facebook describes the process. It said Jerry King buys an Apple Watch from the online Apple Store. The store shares Jerry's activity with us using their business tools. We receive Jerry's off Facebook activity and we save it in his Facebook account. The activity is saved as visit the Apple Store website and made a purchase. Isn't that nice? Jerry sees an ad on Facebook later for a 10% off coupon for the next Apple Store purchase online. He thinks, well, this is great. I can use it. The problem is he was offline. He was at Apple and he bought a watch. Now, Facebook knows about it and they recorded it. So you can't turn these things off. That means you can be on your home computer, bought something, and then later or on your iPhone somewhere else. And that information is showing up in your Facebook account and there's no direct correlation. That's how deep Facebook is out there with everybody. So I looked up my profile and it was a little scary to see because I wanted to see what they've done for me. And basically for a little while that they've been doing this. And I had 93 different things. And this is all started back in 2013 when they acquired Atlas Advertising Platform. They relaunched it in 2014. And so really all your browsing information, your purchases and offline histories are being stored in your profile. And they say it's to help, make sure if it's something you're used to using and buying, to give you coupons or give you sites to go to make these purchases and help you better. But they're really keeping a digital profile of you, and it's basically Big Brother is watching. And that's what Facebook is doing. And it's easy to turn off, but there's only so much control. So the good news is you can't turn this thing off. And what you do is when you go into Facebook, you're going to have to go into your Facebook information and you'll see off Facebook activity. And from there, you'll be able to see what they've been monitoring. For me, I had 93 different apps and websites receiving information from me. So give you an example, I was looking up Honda generators because I have a Honda generator that's old and I was doing some service on it for parts. I do a lot of firearm shooting and training. So I deal with 511.com for backpacks and cool gear bags. I deal with a lot of different things. So at the end of the day, when I start seeing Home Depot, Lowe's, 511, Honda, Hummer, because I own that vehicle, I start looking at all these different things and going, gee, it's interesting that I don't use Facebook ever. And I'm one of the few people that really don't use Facebook and lock down as much as I can. And yet offline, they were tracking my movements. And that don't make us, a little nervous. It should. So you can turn those features off. They of course give you warnings like, hey, you won't be getting coupons in the future from different people and that kind of stuff, or at least they won't be as curtailed to you as you think. I mean, sometimes, it's kind of funny if you go to Walgreens and you buy vitamins like vitamin C, and all of a sudden when they print out that 12-foot long receipt, on there is one of the coupons for, we'll say, women's hygiene products. Well, I'm a guy and I bought vitamin C. Why am I getting coupons for hygiene products? Well, that's kind of what Facebook is saying. If you don't say, hey, you bought vitamin C, then we'll give you a coupon for vitamin C next time, or maybe vitamin D or B. But this way, they're not going to curtail it to you, so to speak. But I do think as much as Facebook is offering some transparency, they've also been doing this behind the scenes. So do I trust them? Absolutely not. So if I have the ability to turn it off, please do so. I recommend you all turn these features off unless you want them on. Some people like that. I can't tell you what to do to try to keep you safe. So I give you the list here on how to do it yourself. It's on the slideshow, which also become a PDF for everybody, and I'm sure George will get that posted for you. But it's also available online, not just by my words, but from Facebook themselves on how to toggle through it and turn these things off. But you also got to clear the past history as well, otherwise it'll still be shared, unfortunately. So give you an idea, you'll see under activity details, and so I kind of used NMUG's name up there where it says turn off future activity from nmug.com, and then it tells you by turning off all the features, they're just giving you all the warnings up front. And so by doing so, you can turn this off, and there's a toggle switch. It hangs out on the side for you to do all that stuff. And then later you have to go down deeper into where it says manage future activity and turn it off as well. Of course, Facebook is going to make it out like, hey, look, we really don't want you to do this because you're going to lose some features. At the end of the day, we really don't need this feature. It's kind of unnerving, the fact that they are tracking my offline business. So I really don't like that. But unfortunately, this is what a lot of companies are doing, and everyone's sharing your information. So even legit companies. So that way, even if you've never been in Facebook before in your entire life, my wife just came to the platform recently because of she does anesthesia, and the anesthesia group, the ANA, want them all to be on Facebook, and it's a requirement, unfortunately, so she had to do it. She was on there probably 20 minutes and could not realize how much information was already there for her, and all the people and family members and friends that popped in to say hi and of course sign up and be part of her friends. So without you even knowing it, Facebook builds a shadow profile of every single one of us out there. So they know you before you show up, and they're just waiting to draw the lines and dot the I's. And when that happens, you're going to be really surprised. It's exciting one way because you kind of lose sight of the scariness part, because you go, oh my God, there's my old boyfriend or my old girlfriend from high school. Oh, there's my ex-wife. Oh, hey, there's the kids. Hey, there's my grandson. And then all of a sudden, it's the greatest thing in the world, because they give you this apple like Adam and Eve. You bite this thing, you get to see everything, but behind the scenes, it's an ugly, ugly picture. And that's one of the things, Facebook, like I tell everybody, everything you put in Facebook 100% becomes their property and their use. So be careful what you put in your profiles, your bios, what you list, where you went to school, all those different things, because they will use that against you. And it's also, and the sad part is, we're a high political climate, especially with the elections coming up. And I'm not going to ask anybody what their political affiliates are, because everybody's entitled to their own thing, which is great. The problem is Facebook has their own belief system, and unfortunately for some individuals, this also tracks what they've done, where they've been, and can also get them basically barred from Facebook or Twitter or Instagram and all these other places. So it's interesting how whatever your religious persuasion is, whatever your political persuasion is, they can actually control whether or not you get to have a voice or not too sometimes. So again, that's their yard you're playing in, not your own. Even though they let you set up a picnic table and things, just remember you're playing in Facebook's world, and they have ultimate control. So at least for the little bit that we can do, at least you can turn these features off, and that'll help a little bit. Anybody have any questions on Facebook so far or anything? Anybody? Good. Okay, so virtual private networks. Simplistically, what you see on the screen is kind of all you need to know, right? Because it's like then there's a secure tunnel that, we pay for a company to provide this lock, and then we get to the internet and get to do all our fun stuff. And it's supposed to keep out government, hackers, snoopers, and everyone else too. Well, in a nutshell, that's pretty simple how a VPN works. Excuse me. However, there's a lot more behind the scenes, and unfortunately, I'm wanting to cover bits and pieces of it because other people have done greater detail on VPNs. And the biggest problem with VPNs is there's a lot of research that goes into them. There's over 200 different companies out there. It's a lot of work to find out, and I'll break down who's reputable and who's not and how we kind of come up with that. But things change every day. So one thing nice about a VPN, I'm sure a lot of you folks, before all this COVID stuff, a lot of you travel, do different things. You go to coffee shops, airports, you go to library for your meetings, and you connect to public Wi-Fi. Well, we all know it's not secure. I mean, there are hackers that set up pineapples where you end up thinking you're on, example, the Collier County Public Library's a Wi-Fi system, and you're actually on a bad guy system mimicking itself as the Collier County public Wi-Fi, and it's not. And then you end up going through his tunnel, and then you start to lose some of your information. So VPNs do really well. They encrypt your data, which is great, so you can get into your bank accounts, your investment accounts, or check your email and different things. Or they're really good for businesses from home to office, where your IT guy sets up a direct connection from home to office. And that's actually the initial intent, because it's great and safe. But now, because of, everybody's prying eyes in different countries, and we travel and people are moving all around the country, you want to feel safer about logging on, because everybody's looking for the free Wi-Fi and they're not considered about their privacy. And so, yes, there are free VPNs, and the paid ones are definitely way better, and I recommend it. But it's just saying that VPNs, there's a lot of good to go with them. You can access, like when you travel, you can access block content. So let's just say you want to watch your Hulu or Netflix or even Comcast, and you're sitting in, we'll say London right now, and you don't want to watch British TV, you want to watch American TV. Well, because every country has basically a region code, and there's rights as far as broadcasting, the shows won't show up on either side. And you can't just log into the web and see it, because it's showing up from whatever address you're at. So if I'm in London and I connect to try to get to Comcast, it's not going to stream it to me because I have a London IP address. The VPN kind of tricks that and makes me come out as a US IP address, like I'm on US soil. Ergo, it tricks them so I can start watching my Hulu, Netflix, and even my Comcast from afar. That part's kind of nice. So, and it's safe, and really nobody knows you're doing it, so to speak. There's still more good to come of it. You can bypass a restricted network. A lot of schools, a lot of places of work don't want people surfing the web, and their IT guys have locked down as much as they can lock down with firewalls. They've locked down websites. They've locked down searches. So a lot of people just feel like, hey, I'm at work. They should work. Go figure. You're at work. You should work. But reality is most people are on their phones and iPads and devices all the time. Facebook, Pinterest, Instagram. It's amazing how much people spend on these different apps and different services. Well, with the VPN, you can actually bypass it usually and be able to log into your stuff, and they won't even know it because you're going through a VPN tunnel. And so that does work. And actually there are some actual hardware devices that actually can even restrict some VPNs, because you can block the network traffic. But oftentimes they don't, because the ports have to be open for others to use it as well. So it depends on the organization, but it does help bypass restricted networks. Now, you've heard for years, remember years ago how everybody would have, LimeWire and Napster and FrostWire? People would share files and apps and music and movies and bootleg stuff all the time. Well, now you can actually, there's no way to get around it. So you can share files privately. And then that way, no one knows what you're doing. I mean, it's legal files can be shared. So it's great if your attorney offices or doctor's offices for, your patient and client privileges. It's great. But illegal files can do the same thing. So if I, got the next Star Wars movie, from Hollywood, and I send it on share it, through a VPN to someone overseas, and they can bootleg it and send it over there, no one knows I've actually done it. So there's a lot of copyright issues, but that's up to the person's morality, whether or not they want to do it or not. But they can do it, and VPN's making that as a good possibility. Now, also the good reason for a VPN is you do have the right to privacy. I mean, and when we all hope that we can try to keep some of our life private, and it's getting harder and harder every day. So it does give you that ability to at least not lose your credit cards or bank accounts when you're trying to check things when you're far away or even out of state for that matter. So at least this way, there's some goods to VPNs, and kind of in a nutshell, they work well. But
Dennis, we do have a question if you have a second.
go ahead.
Thomas Hopkins wants to know, is cell phone data safer than public Wi-Fi?
Yeah, absolutely, it's safer. But again, I'll explain a little bit more of that later. As far as safety concerned, cellular is safer than public Wi-Fi for sure.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Now, the bad of it is gosh, at this point, I would say there's probably closer to 220, 230 plus VPNs these days. There's companies that have dropped off and companies that keep popping up, and they're not always good as who they say they are. I mean, a lot of you guys heard of LifeLock, right? They seem to be the best security company out there. And someone has a breach in your bank or your investment company says we're going to give you a free 2 years of LifeLock. Well, they are not the best game, okay? But because it's name recognition and everybody heard of them and they're on every freaking commercial, then people think, oh, got to get LifeLock, must be good. Doesn't mean they actually are. So that happens with VPNs as well. Now, there's a lot of disadvantages, out there, and a lot of people don't even realize that they go by what they're looking at, and they'll say, well, NordVPN sounds good to me. My neighbor uses it, so I'm going to do it. Or people buy wine because the bottle's pretty. Well, they buy it because the logo look cool. Tunnel Bear, we'll talk about them later. They're a cute looking little logo. Or Malvad, a cute looking logo. So why did people pick that? Maybe it stood out to them. So these are just funny reasons why people pick things, and oftentimes it goes by recommendations, and that's what I'm doing here today. We're going to kind of give you some recommendations to try to keep it a little safer, because it is a big business. There's a lot of ground to cover in acreage, and a lot of it's factual, a lot of it's not factual, and I'm going to try to sift through the filler to make it easier for you. Just remember, VPNs can be illegal in your country. Now, we can use them in America. A lot of other countries like China, example, will not allow it, because everything runs through Chinacom. Google's search engines don't even work in China. They have their own system. North Korea, not allowed. Now, let's just say you have to do business over there. That's great. And you have your VPN because you want to check your accounts. You want to do things. Well, by turning that feature on, they may know that, and then you can get into trouble, because, a lot of people try to report things. Even news media folks are trying to get information out of these countries, and they get tracked and caught. So it's not as easy. You think the VPN will protect you, but in fact, you can be jailed for it, or pay a big fine, or end up becoming some kind of a international issue, because they'll make a big public stink out of it. So who knows? But so before you actually deploy it somewhere, make sure it's legal first. But a lot of people don't even pay attention to that. One thing about private networks is there's a lot of performance issues. So some of you connecting today, you connect with Comcast, some of you have CenturyLink, some of you are using AT&T or Verizon from your handhelds. Others have different things like Cox, and there's a whole bunch of other services across the country, some have broadband and Google. And so the backbones, and everyone pays for a different service speed. So some people have the entry level, maybe might be 10 megabits a second, and that affects how data comes and goes. So when you connect to a private server, you're actually going to another set of computers elsewhere. They kind of cloak you, encrypt your stuff, which takes time, and then pops up somewhere else. And so there's a lot of time it takes for it to happen. And so sometimes it takes longer to send data. So whether you're trying to send an attachment, you're trying to move stuff to another server, to another file folder somewhere, when you connect to iCloud, things seem to go pretty quickly. But with these things, the servers are all over the place, and sometimes the closest one isn't the best thing, and they have their ISP problems. So is their backbone solid? So sometimes during the day, they may fall off on you, and we'll talk about it when they fall off, what that means for you if you're connected in that tunnel at the time. But yeah, it's one of the biggest things is you'll see that there are issues with performance, and it takes a longer time to get some things done. And so that does frustrate people. There are better services than others that actually, have done that. A VPN service can monitor your activity and data. So sometimes networks will say, hey, you can use a free VPN as long as, we can, go look over your stuff and see what you have and keep an eye on it. just because it's encrypted doesn't mean somebody can't decrypt it and see it. A lot of these companies have what they call affiliates, where NordVPN is not the sole owner of all their servers around the planet that they're using. You'll have other companies that are affiliates, and they don't disclose all their information about who they are, what they are, and how good they are. So we'll talk about that a little bit later. But they can monitor your service. So here you're thinking you're in this private tunnel, and yet somebody can still track you and still see what you're doing. So you're never really totally hidden sometimes. And so I'd say avoid the free ones no matter what.
I have a question from Mitch. Would you take that?
Sure. Hey, Mitch.
Okay, Mitch, go
Hi,
ahead.
Dennis.
Hey, bud.
The VPN, I know I use that when I look at sensitive things, anything when I'm in a public website area. But what I gathered from the discussion is that if I send something to my son and I've got my VPN on and he's in Cincinnati, that protects it even though he doesn't have a VPN? Is it like sending something encrypted?
Well, technically, yes and no, because the way encrypted data works, this is where law firms and hospitals have issues. So normally, oftentimes, in order to do something really like securemyfile.com, basically, I'm sending you a link to get to a file, and then you have to have a passcode and entry to get there, and it's encoded at that location. Then when you get it, it's already decoded. So you kind of have to have a key to lock and key to unlock at both ends. And unfortunately, what happens with some of these things, it's already unlocked at the other end. So I would say it's secure to a point, but then again, did the tunnel it passed through, was it secure? It says it was encrypted, but did someone else monitor it? So there's things that, there's no guarantees, and there's a lot of background that goes into looking at all these VPNs and who they really are. And I'm going to break it down a little bit later on who's trustworthy, as far as full disclosure of their affiliates, who they do business with, whether it's not. Some have pretty interfaces, some actually have a really good private network, and they honor your being anonymous. I can't say the word anonymity, whatever. But it's one of those things that there's a lot out there, and it's for that particular question you have, the answer is for the most part, it's probably safe, but then again, somebody can probably still see it. At this day and age, I'd say anybody can see anything realistically. But there's so much data out there. Are they particularly looking at that piece of information? I seriously doubt it. But just remember, every text you send, every email, all that stuff runs to the NSA servers, and they have all that stuff. Now, it doesn't mean anything, but Big Brother is always watching. And I would say we have more flexibility being in America than we do in other countries. So I would say you're probably a lot safer than most. And I don't think anybody's going to be looking at that, to be honest with you. Now, maybe if you're Donald Trump, so to speak, and trying to send something to his son, then maybe they're looking for that. But that's a whole nother issue and a different ballgame. But
Thanks.
Sure thing.
That's great.
For business users, it gets to be harder because, like I said, if it's a boss back to his office or it's one of the employees back to the office, that kind of virtual private stuff is pretty easy to set up. But when you got to set up a whole bunch of computers in an office, if you've got 40 people working for you and everything's got to be secure, like a bunch of attorneys in a big law firm like Morgan & Morgan, for example, who we have, they're nationwide. I mean, if they were to go VPN with every single connection in the office, their bandwidth just couldn't handle it. They'd have special equipment. So it doesn't always work. I mean, it'd be a snail's pace. And sometimes they take turns or use certain computers for the transmission solely and not all the computers. I actually have some offices that strictly have, for production reasons with employees, they have one central email computer that everybody's got their own login to, and the only email gets sent and received from that machine and nowhere else in the business. So it's interesting how people do things these days.
Mary, would you like to ask your question?
Yes. Hi, Dennis. I'm just wondering whether I should bother to use my VPN when accessing my bank or investment company while I'm at home.
You know what? Here's the thing. If you're paying for VPN, and that's actually not a bad thing. I mean, the banks are 256-bit encrypted. They are pretty safe. But again, there are glitches at times. I mean, online banking is safe. Everyone's doing it. It's the tricks of making sure we don't give up keys to the kingdom for the bad guy to come into the accounts. Like example, not storing things in your web browser and things like that, and changing your password at least once a year and making it more a longer, like 12 to 16 characters for the big ones, your investments, your credit cards, not credit cards, but your investments in your bank accounts should be longer.
Okay.
But things for like, Lowe's and Home Depot, which, those passwords can be simpler, but it really, for better etiquette, if you do it for one, you should do it for all, and they all should be different, and they should have nothing to do with you, the passwords. So that way it makes it even harder for a bad guy to try to figure out, what your likes or dislikes are. So that way, and we can talk more about that later. But yeah, I mean, if you want to use a VPN for that, that's absolutely fine. Now, keep in mind, it's a great question. I'll tell you why. Some banks and investment firms won't allow a login sometimes through a VPN. I've seen that with some investments. They're trying to change security because they're trying to make sure there's no backdoors with other folks coming in that are not the right person of the account. So you have your part trying to keep yourself safe, but then they're also doing their part to keep themselves safe, and sometimes they collide. So, but I know that they're making provisions. But I know there are two big investment companies that are made some changes where it makes it harder for VPNs to get in. Even the same point when we step off the topic for a second about password managers. A lot of people will log in, you one password or data vault, things like that. Well, nowadays you can't, with the new banking rules, you can't just, copy paste into a web browser, log into your account. Now you have to type it out. And for some people, they go, well, holy crap, my password's like 10 miles long. I got to type it every single time. Well, then that's just for safety reasons. And that's just so that people don't get complacent. And, because people give up privacy for convenience all the time, every day. And nobody wants to be bothered with a 16-digit passcode and to try to remember. Everyone is different for the 80 million things we have to remember a password for. So that's where they're making the changes where, it was convenient to just log in. And most accounts let you do that. But banking industry said, no, you got to type it in to make sure that you're actually somebody there and you're not a robot. So it's things are changing.
Thanks.
Sure
All
thing.
right, Conrad, would you like to ask your question?
Yeah, do you recommend any particular VPN services?
Oh yeah, I'm going to talk about that here a little bit. They're coming up. Oh yeah, we still got more to go. We'll get you answered for sure.
All right, thank you.
So I'll go through these kind of quick because you can read this stuff later. It's also going to be in PDF form. But honestly, VPNs do slow down your internet. Although the new ones that we've tested, we got a lot of clients that use different ones, and they are getting better with their speeds. But don't forget, a lot of people have, like I said, they have a higher internet package. So where I'm broadcasting from my office, my package is 250 megabit per second from Comcast on a business line. So, and I can tell you that my speeds are incredible where I'm at. At home, I pay for the gigabit package, and I'm getting average speeds of 770 meg per second downloads. So my kids love it for gaming and streaming movies, which is awesome, and we never have any internet issues. So when you have a VPN, VPNs kind of draw on that because it's got to put you through a secure tunnel, travel to a private server, and come up somewhere else. So it does affect the data speed. But don't forget, it's both sides of every coin. It's my internet provider, their internet provider, the speeds of the network itself. And then what are we doing? If I'm just looking at something and logging in, it's faster. But if I'm sending data and I'm transferring files or I'm moving bigger, maybe a bunch of photos that are huge, then it will be a lot longer and take a little more time. But it definitely can slow down your internet traffic. Now, for some people in certain areas, if you have CenturyLink and you have a 5 megabit package and you turn a VPN on, it's like dial-up connection in the old days. Everything's going to be slow as a snail. So really, your internet speeds do make a difference. Cell phones have gotten better, and it's even going to be even better when we talk about the 5G stuff. I'll explain how data travels that way. But as we move further down the list here, using a VPN does not guarantee that you're 100% anonymous. Somebody can know who you are. And so what I mentioned before, if you're going through a VPN socket somewhere and it fails at their end, sometimes it's like running down the street with a blanket over your head. Nobody knows who you are until the wind blows, the blanket falls off, and your neighbors know who you are running down the street. So it's the same thing with the VPN. Sometimes their cloak gets blown, and if you're standing there, then you're exposed. Well, a lot of them have features like what they call a double VPN, where it works off a series of servers. Others have a kill switch, where basically the wall goes up immediately when that thing fails, and then none of your data gets out, or tries to stop as much as they can at the time. So, and sometimes the hardware itself leaks, or there's software and patches that fail. So there's a lot of stuff out there, but there's no guarantee. And then, of course, the free ones, definitely I'd stay away from. So you'll hear me say, don't use the free stuff. because everybody wants to try, like, hey, why pay for it? I can get it for free. It's like antivirus. If you ain't paying for it for a Windows computer, the free stuff doesn't work. And also, you'll find areas that it's not possible to bypass all the restrictions out there. So sometimes, like example, I have clients that come over from Britain and they want to watch the BBC and they want to watch their own broadcasting, just like we would be familiar with what we're used to in our country. And they cannot log into their stuff unless they have a VPN. And some services say, if you have this VPN, you can see this content. And some of it's expensive, but some of it, even with the VPN, will not let you do it anyway, because the VPN service said, you know what, we're going to honor the rights and copyrights of example, Netflix or HBO or who's ever TV or BBC, and then they won't let it through anyway. So even with a VPN, you still may not be allowed to send traffic. So that happens as well. So Conrad, to answer your question, they're going to be on the right-hand side of your screen here. You're going to see the list of what I list, and I'm going to explain the list you see there. Like I said, there's several hundred of these suckers, but I'm going to explain what I like, what I don't like, and just give you a basic idea. But before I go into that, one of the things too, I was talking, well, Mary said earlier, she has an old MacBook Air. It's about 7 years old. So, like anything, the newer computers, the newer phones, newer tablets, whether it's Mac, Windows, whatever it is, even the Chromebooks things, they're all newer technology. There's newer safety things built in. They have newer operating systems. Of course, they had a lot of security and stuff in the base of it. Apple's got their own Gatekeeper and others, XProtect. There's things that are built in the operating system to keep us safe. But if it's outdated or old, then a lot of times the VPN may not work as well or work at all. And that's the same with most software. And sometimes, you may have a crappy router at home or not one that's configured right. And some of the VPN software will actually help you configure your router properly so that you're able to take advantage of the safety and security of the VPN. So there are good pluses and minuses with VPNs. But one of the things, and I'll tell you now, when I go over the list here to the right, is I will say many of these services will never or don't give full disclosure of their affiliates. And really, I would never do business with them just for that reason. And so the list you see, there's 1 through 15. They are not in a order of who's number 1's the best and 15 is the worst. I just listed them up there just to give you an idea that some of these names are reputable, and to a point, and other parts, this is how, when you do these researches, what someone says is reputable and what they really are two different things. And so sometimes you really got to do your homework. And unfortunately, a lot of people don't, because A, they don't know to do it. B, they're hoping that, well, if my neighbor uses it or my doctor uses it, it's got to be good. So that's what I'll do. Or my son uses it, that's what I'm going to do. And oftentimes some of these people do the research. Others, I can tell you, don't. And so most reputable services will offer you a better VPN experience with safety and features. I will tell you, it will change from time to time. A list may say, example, TunnelBear would be number 1 right now, example, and they do a good job. But maybe tomorrow they got bought out by someone else, and then those features change or the security changes. So that has a lot to do with these companies. A lot of them get bought up and taken over. It used to be the thought that anything on U.S. soil was much safer than anything off U.S. soil. I could tell you that I think with Malvad that I have down here, which is one of my picks, they're a Swedish-based business, but they do a great job, and so there's a lot that goes on, and I won't bore you with all the details because it's a lot of reading, a lot of research, and I'm not the only one that's done. A lot of other folks have, and I've read a lot of other people's articles and things, which is really great because it makes my life easier trying to break it down for you to make it a little bit easier. So you all know NordVPN. There's commercials for it, and I'm going to tell you. So when this comes up as a reputable business, Nord says they have the most responsive customer support, and their customer support is responsive, but they also not a very good because they don't necessarily disclose all their affiliates they're with, or they may pay for, ranking, so to speak, like ExpressVPN. They pay money out to, just like buying, Facebook clicks or whatever, likes, where you buy likes, where people say, oh, you're great because you have all these likes. Well, they're not really real. They're kind of made up. It's like the Experian boost on your credit score. Oh, I got an extra 50 points. Well, if your credit's only so what? 50 points isn't going to make a difference. For some people, it might buying a car, but were they real, or that just something Experian did just to make you feel better? So, End of the day, you'll just see the list here. You know, Pure VPN says they use a lot of server sorting, which means they go through multiple servers quicker and do a good job with that. ExpressVPN says they're efficient, and there's different guidelines for these things. So these are just kind of little highlights. You know, Cyber goes, exceptional user interface. Yeah, it's great. It's easy to use. They're not the best. They don't disclose their affiliates. They're just, you know, they're just not a great company, but they have a great interface. So, but again, it goes back to my comment earlier, when people buy wine because how the bottle looks, it's kind of how, you know, they have a great interface. So that's why I use CyberGhost. And people like convenience versus privacy or safety. You know, Surfshark's one that's out there, they say they're truly unlimited. Yeah, you can put that on 25 different devices you have with, you know, one purchase. That's kind of cool. But then they may pay for their ratings, or they won't disclose their affiliates, who they do business with. Because remember, a lot of these companies, you know, when you set up a network, it's not like you have to have a network as a bunch of mainframe computers, but they're in different areas, and not every company owns all their servers because they're expensive. And server farms aren't cheap, especially when you're trying to move data like this and encrypt it and decrypt it and move it around the planet privately. Well, you know, so having these farms, and of course, the more servers you have gives you more variety of getting around places better than others, but not everybody owns all their servers, so they do affiliates, or they partner with somebody who has a server farm that they allow them to go through. A lot of these places don't disclose, you know, who they are, what they are, and how they do things, and whether or not they keep your data, track your data, and whatever. And if they're not going to disclose the information to you, then I would definitely pause and not do business with them, because I like to know, if you are going to provide me a service, are you going to keep me truly safe? And if you can't tell me about who you're doing business with, then I don't want to do business with you. Now, there are very, very few that actually don't list them because they're on the higher military side, that actually don't disclose who they're doing business with, because they don't want people to know they're actually not doing business with. Give you an example, you know, my other company, Griffin Force, you know, it talks about identity theft and fraud and mitigation, risk mitigation. So that's what Carrie and I do. But we're also a cyber defense company. We don't advertise it that way, because we want the bad guy to think, hey, these guys are just coming in to fix somebody's their identity and stuff like that, you know. But if I advertise that we're a big cyber company and we can, you know, defend you against different things, then the bad guy is going to come looking for me and try to take out my systems or my technology. So it's kind of a little bit of cloaking, but I'm willfully tell you that because that's just how we do things. But there are a few companies that way, but a lot of them here, these are in it for the money and quick business, and and it costs money to do a lot of this stuff. It costs money to have a backbone and have the software and have the upkeep and the safety and the regulations, especially with the GDPR coming out and all and then just what copyright issues, you know, country to country. It's a lot going on, and so not everybody wants to pay to play, so to speak. You know, you have other ones down here like Proton VPN, they're high secure, and there's a few others out there, like, you know, Buffer VPN has great speeds, but it doesn't do anything for you if you got like I said, a slow speed on your CenturyLink. So the ones that I put in, there's like 6 here. There's probably 7, 8, maybe 10 these days. They're actually really do a good job, and you can look them up for yourself and do some reviews. There's other folks out there that have done a lot more fact sheets than I have, but good companies are like Windscribe. There's full disclosure. Mulvad, that's my favorite one. They really do a lot. I like not to mention they have a really cool looking icon with the little mole guy with the headlamp, but they do a great job. They keep you there. You know, there's a lot about them. They fully disclose and do things. Other than being a Swedish company, they do a great job. Tunnel Bear does good. Then there's a couple others that are down there. So I'll give you, those are my recommendations. And you notice none of them say NordVPN, okay, or Perfect Privacy. So those, you know, they're just, they all have good pluses and minuses, but these, you know, there's about, honestly, I'd say about 7 to 10 that are really reputable, really go the extra distance. Now, again, that could change tomorrow with somebody acquiring the company or not, or they change business roles, and, you know, who knows, maybe things change now because people aren't making money like they used to because of the whole world with this COVID stuff. Things change. You know, you got to pay for these features. You got to pay employees. You got to pay for the backbone. So we're hoping all this stuff is as good as they say it is. And you got to trust somebody somewhere. But there's a lot of good people out there besides me who've done a lot more intense research on these companies and come up with a better list than I have. But I can tell you, at least the ones that are highlighted in green are reputable. They're very good. They do full disclosure. They do talk about their affiliates, who they do business with. You know, some do logging where they keep track of everything you do. These guys don't log. So there's a lot of different things out there. And a lot of it, like I said, is geek talk. But I would say the ones I've listed in green, if you want to do business with them, I would recommend them. They do a better job. They're not perfect, but I would say they do a very good job. Any questions for VPNs before we move into the 5G stuff?
Yes, I have a question from Martha. I'm going to unmute you.
Go ahead.
Thank you. I use TunnelBear VPN, and a year ago, my iPhone 6 suddenly lost all of its connectivity. I couldn't get online. I tried all the customary fixes of turning everything off and back on, etc. Finally, in desperation, I went online to Apple, and they worked with me for longer than a day. And we downloaded the whole phone and reinstalled everything. Still didn't have connectivity, so they set me up. Their Genius Bar was too busy, so they sent me over to Best Buy to go to their Geek Bar. And I spent an afternoon there, and that guy couldn't figure it out. And they all decided that the hardware was fried and sent me back to the Apple store to get a replacement phone, which I ended up getting. And when the young, least experienced gal was transferring from the old phone to the new phone, she says, "Oh, you have a VPN. That was your problem." But by then, of course, I had paid for the new phone and signed all the papers. So now I'm enjoying my new iPhone 11, but I've always scratched my head. Why the hell did that happen? And how come all of these really smart, adept people couldn't figure it out?
So it's a very good issue you brought up. So the VPN, it's like in your Wi-Fi settings. So when you're at home and you first get the phone set, you connect to your network, and then when you leave the house and come back, it automatically reconnects to your network because Wi-Fi or Bluetooth's on. You leave it on until you get to your car picks you up until you get back in the car again. So it's the same thing with the VPN. If it's on, it's working. But then when you start leaving the connection, like, so I go from my home fast Comcast, and I'm all of a sudden, boom, I'm over on cellular. And then the server I was initially connected to from my house, because VPNs, you can pick your server that you're connected to, or one of them or a couple of them, then it may fall off. And then all of a sudden, all the data is still trying to be run through that VPN, and it's not going anywhere. It's almost like a firewall. A firewall, it's a piece of hardware, or even software related, but hardware that keeps bad people out of your network. But in the same breath, the firewall that has a shield to keep people out also has a door to keep you in, which means you can't get out to the internet. So unless people forget, there's always something else that they've added to the machine. And most of the time, Apple's not going to look at that, because I hate to say it, you probably walked in the store and you look like just a general average everyday user of an iPhone. Now, if you walked in as like, "Hey, I'm the head of IBM," they'll say, "Oh, well, let's look at your phone. Maybe your IT guy put a VPN on there," and they may have gone that route. So that's a common issue. It does happen. I've had people put antivirus on their computers with the firewall, it kicks in, and now they can't get on the internet. It says it's connected, and there's no traffic moving, and it's all because of a stupid firewall. And then once you turn it off, turn it back on, it learns your behavior, and you can start moving data again. But yeah, don't be surprised. Not everybody at the Apple Store will look at those things, even if they are geniuses. And when it comes to computers today, it's one thing to know your product. It's one thing to know your software. It's to know everybody else's add-ons. And the VPN is an add-on. So Apple may know what a VPN is. Doesn't mean they know how it works or what that app did to your phone specifically, or the settings you chose to use with it. So that's where they'll look to you. Hopefully you say, "Well, I didn't do anything to my phone. It just doesn't work." And it's out of sight, out of mind, because the VPN doesn't sit up in front of your screen saying, "Hey, I'm running right now." You'd have to know if it's on or off, and that does happen.
All right, we have a question from James Corsica. I'm going to unmute you. Okay, hold on. For some reason, I cannot seem to get you unmuted, James. Okay, ready. You're ready, James.
I just unmuted myself.
There you
Okay.
Dennis, I'm a little confused. A couple of weeks ago, we had somebody touting Encrypt Me, and I'm wondering, is that the same thing as a VPN?
Not so if they're familiar with Encrypt Me. So there are different services. You can encrypt your data to send from one place to another. A VPN is more of a tunnel from one place to another, but it's moving your IP address from, example, being in Naples, Florida, and it's coming up maybe in Canada, maybe it's coming up in Wahoo, Nebraska. It's moving you around and privately. So you're kind of being cloaked so no one knows it's you. So when you log into your bank, they don't know you're coming from your house. They think you're coming from somewhere else within the country. And so that way, if example, the encrypt me stuff, I don't quote me on this one because I'm not familiar with that specifically, because there's a lot of products out there and software and companies. But usually some companies will say, hey, I need to encrypt my data so I can email it to somebody, like, for a doctor's office or a law firm to transfer for HIPAA compliance or best practice. So you can use those services. And oftentimes you can send data to them, and either it's one of those situations where you put the data in their location through encrypt me. It encrypts it, but then it sends out an email usually to the other party that says, hey, here's a password and username to log in to get to that particular file or data. And then you have access to it. It'll decrypt it for them at that point. Because the one thing about encryption is you have to have the decryptor at the other end. And so if I buy encryption software for my computer and go to send you an email and I send you the file, unless you have that software on your machine at your end, which most people aren't going to spend or buy, there's nowhere to decrypt that file. So usually it's a service that does it for you.
And another quick one, is the Xfinity Wi-Fi network that sort of blankets the region a more secure network than, say, using Publix's or the libraries?
I would say yes for now, because what it does is it basically turns so in your neighborhood, say everybody's got Comcast and there's 100 houses. Everyone's got their modem broadcasting. So in theory, if I'm out in one of the roadways near your house and it says Xfinity Wi-Fi and I log in, I'm logging into my portal. First off, they know it's me for number one, because I'm a client. To do that, most people have to be a client, or you got to pay to actually get a little bit of time with them so you can use it. But when you go through someone else's modem, so to speak, to access the mainframe network, it's on a different virtual LAN. It's on a different line. So it's running through a different chip on that modem. It's not going to tie into your personal network at all. And so they say there's no way to get the two together, which I really hope is the truth. If that's the case, then really no one's coming into your network. That's how New York broadcasts. I mean, you got 20, 30, I don't know how many people in New York, but there's a hell of a lot of people. And their backbone just on cellular a day can handle it. So a lot of it, a lot of the big ISPs put in the trunk lines for, like Xfinity and others, just so that people can move data around, because there's so many people on the circuit. And so I would say it's a lot safer than using public Wi-Fi. And at least if it's Xfinity, but again, you also have to be careful that you got to know where you're at, because sometimes, like I tell all the time, in airports are the worst, because people travel with a lot of electronics. I mean, and a pineapple isn't very big. I can do something the size of a little, you guys know what the Western Digital Passport hard drives look like. They're little small, little bricks. I can make a Wi-Fi pineapple out of that, be sitting at RSW airport, turn that sucker onto my laptop. Everybody thinks I have a hard drive connected, and it says RSW guest Wi-Fi, and you log into it. Now I have access to your machine, especially if you have Windows. And then I can get in and start doing things. So people think they're on the RSW actual guest Wi-Fi, when in reality, mine's broadcasting close to them, so they connected it to quicker than the main one. So that does happen. But honestly, I think the Xfinity itself is pretty safe for now.
Okay, thanks.
Sure.
All right. Alan and Barbara, you have a question.
Yes. Hi. I did have a question about Encrypt Me, because I thought it was a VPN. So
it could be, like I said, I really don't know. Like I said, there's 200 out there plus. I don't know them all. I try to look at the ones that are, I look at other people's research, and I try to find ones that are better, because there's a lot that goes on behind the scenes. They may be reputable, they may not be. I don't know. I'd have to do some research on Encrypt Me. I didn't.
Sure. So therefore,
actually, I'll make a note and I'll follow up and send it to the club to let you know what I can find out and see if it's worthwhile or not.
Thanks. My problem with them was that it kept blocking. Like, say I looked up the movie review on the New York Times, it wouldn't, on Google, let me go to that website, even though I might have still had access to the New York Times in terms of numbers of free reviews per month or something I could access. So I have a question for you in general about these VPNs.
Sure.
So is the main recommendation from you, Dennis, that they're advisable to get a paid service because it enhances the amount of privacy and reduces the amount of hacking of bad guys of your accounts and private information.
Correct, because the whole idea is to keep your data private. So if you're trying to run through a tunnel to keep your stuff hidden and be anonymous, you want that. That's the intent of it. And so the government's not snooping on you. It's not you know, some man-in-the-middle attack waiting to get over you. And those things do happen. Unfortunately, the free services are what they are. And unfortunately, everyone loves free because they don't have to pay for anything. And or they want the cheapest one they can get. And it's not, you know, you get what you pay for a lot of times. But to be honest, there are times you'll spend a lot of money on something and it not be what it was, you know, meant to be either. But like I said, the VPNs are still evolving. There's a lot more data coming. There's a lot more ways we communicate out there. It's not just through the ISP in your house, through the modem in your wall out to Comcast or CenturyLink or Summit Broadband per se. But, you know, we have the 4G services, the 5G services, cellular, 3G, you know, there's other microwave frequencies, there's satellite. I mean, and then there's a lot of other near field communications. The frequency bandwidths are narrow and we have more stuff being added to them. So there's a lot more opportunity for us to have breaches. And so I think the VPN does help. They may not be perfect, but, you know, for the most part, you know, that's why I'm trying to help you guys narrow down a few companies, at least that are reputable. You know, you may use something different and like it and feel comfortable with it. I can't tell you otherwise, except if you want, I can at least do a little more research on it and say, hey, here's what I found. You can still continue to use it or decide to change your ways. You know, I mean, but like I said, they come and go. There's a lot of them. They like anything, and it's kind of hard to always recommend the best ones for everybody.
Cheetah, I had a quick question about Facebook that I wasn't able to ask when Dennis was discussing.
I'm sorry, we should limit the question to just
Okay,
one.
fine.
All right,
We'll
Jim.
at the end of this, we'll answer your question. It's no problem.
Okay.
All right, Jim, are you on?
Yes, I am, Cheetah.
Go ahead. Go ahead.
Thanks. Hi, guys. Thanks again for inviting me to this meeting. I'm the guy from Milwaukee, Wisconsin. I'm president of our DoubleClick Mac users group. And about a year and a half ago, I got really interested in VPNs and did a heck of a lot of research myself. And interestingly enough, came up with the same conclusion that Dennis came up with. And I'm actually using Mulvid also. Cool. And I think it's a great VPN. But one thing I want you guys to realize is that if you type in a Google search for what is the best VPN, you're again going to get a zillion hits on that, and 99+% of those websites are being paid by the VPNs to refer customers to them. So you got to be really careful if you're researching for VPN about the websites that are out there. Now, there are a couple of them that actually are legitimate, that do not accept money from the VPN companies. And one of them that I really like, an excellent all-around security source, is privacytools.io. Privacytools.io. And they have a page where they list their criteria for a good VPN. And it's very conclusive and very strict. And they came up with only 3 VPNs out of the some 200 that are out there that they feel that they can recommend in general. One of them is Mulvid, another is iVPN, and the third one is Proton VPN. And I would really recommend that you go to that website. I will paste that into the chat to everybody. But it's an excellent source. And if I could kind of mention the research that I did myself, I actually have posted that on my own website, and I will post a link to that too. I have a series of articles there. I had originally shared these with my local Macintosh users group, but again, that information is on my website now. And again, I'm not being paid by anybody to do this. It's just a project that I did myself and shared. And it's a pretty thorough review of what to look for in a VPN and how to assess and find a trustworthy VPN. So I'll paste that to the chat section also. But Dennis, I think you're doing an excellent job, and I have really no arguments with anything that you've said about the VPN situation. So thanks again for your your comments.
Thank you, Jim. Thank you.
Okay. All right, David?
Yes. Question is, I do financial with dealings with Fidelity and Wells Fargo. When I log into Fidelity, I get a notice, a secure connection is being established. When I log into Wells Fargo, there's no notification at all. Are both as secure?
Well, one thing you can check is when you click in the URL up on the, there's like a little favicon. It's a little icon for Wells Fargo. If you click on it, it's going to tell you, you're going to see the SSL secure layer socket when it kicks in. If it's not, you may not be in the right Wells Fargo website. So make sure that you see the SSL before you put any information in to be sure. There's a lot of knockoffs out there, and sometimes you can have one little letter or space off in a URL, and it may not be the right place. So just check to make sure first.
Thank you.
You bet. And Jim,
All
thanks.
right.
Okay, you have another question?
I got one last hand here. Jim, Cutler, are you there?
Yeah.
Okay, go ahead.
It's important to remember what the VPNs are really doing, and that's protection of information in transit, so that you can't have an eavesdropper see what's going on. This is especially important on public Wi-Fi, like at Starbucks or wherever. It doesn't protect other information disclosures, like sharing of information between the vendors and Facebook that we heard about at another time. And it doesn't protect attacks on your system, whether it's denial of service attacks or whether it's downloading some malware from malvertising. In other words, getting bad code on your system by clicking on something you shouldn't click on. So it's very important to use a VPN if you can't get an encrypted channel between you and whoever you're connected with. But it's only one part of a multifaceted security environment. I hope that helps.
No, but actually, it's a very valid point, because really there is no one bullet fix for any of the stuff we're doing nowadays when it comes to technology. Like I said, the lack of standards, the lack of protocols, the ever-changing landscape, 10 ways of Sunday, and how we transmit all of our data all over the place. Like you said, I mean, yes, the VPN does give you protection from point to point, but if you get to that point and you click on something that's untoward and it puts a virus in your machine, ransomware, whether it's malware or whether or not there's a leaky point through the tunnel and the place you ended up, they got your data and gave it to somebody else. Those things can happen. But these are just all tidbits to try to help keep you safe along the digital landscape, because it's a big field, and sometimes we don't always have the right tools to keep ourselves safe. The good news is, this isn't Mac users group. This isn't Windows users groups. In fact, they couldn't have a meeting like this because it'd be nonstop questions from the moment it opened up, because everybody's got problems with Windows computers. So Apple on their own record have actually put a lot of safety and security built into their systems, which is great. And every now and then you'll hear some research firm saying, hey, we found a hole in the mail program, or a hole in the text program, or a hole in something. But Apple's proactive. They know about these things. There are companies they pay to breach their systems all the time so they can make them better. And that's actually awesome. Now, I will tell you, because I do get to work with some NSA folks here in town. I get to work with some former FBI. I can tell you that Israeli intelligence is amazing. And I can tell you they know a lot of things before we would know it. And I think, to be honest, even if I had a VPN running through Israel, they would probably know where I'm going, what I'm doing 100%. And not everybody will disclose the type of technology that they use to monitor everybody else. And so government agencies definitely have better things than we have at our disposal. So even though we think we're safe, I always joke, I had a client once, he was real big into looking at, soft porn and pornography. And he's like, I just closed the curtains on my window and and I turn off the lights low, and I look at the stuff I want to look at, and no one knows I'm there. And I told him, I said, well, Comcast knows you're there. He goes, well, how do you figure? I use a private browser. Nobody knows. I said, Comcast is holding a connection from you and your house on that computer through the website to the other website, and they know what data is streaming. In fact, when I actually dealt with parents of kids who were doing the LimeWire downloads of all the MP3s and taking all kind of music. And there was a kid here in Collier County about 14 years ago now, that had a cease and desist order. Comcast blacklisted the family from using their services. They got served a $10,000 fine. The FBI came to their door, and they thought it was like a bigger ring, but here it turned out to be a child that had over 1.2 million songs that they were, basically uploading and streaming to everybody on the freeware stuff. And so she got in trouble for it. So somebody is always watching, to the point where they knew what song she got, what server they came from. And nowadays, a lot of these file sharing sites are using VPNs. But again, some countries don't even allow them to work, period. But so the file sharing stuff isn't as big as it used to be. I think the only thing that really gets transmitted these days, other than music, really is movies, and other information that we don't know about. But realistically, yeah, I think is a very good point, James. And Jim, thanks for chiming in. I appreciate that. It's a lot of good information about VPNs, and I'm looking forward to looking at the research you've done, and I appreciate the privacytools.io that I'll look at later. So that'll help me better go forward with things. So I appreciate that.
Dennis, can we move on to 5G?
Yep. I'm on it right now. So 5G technology. So what's happening is it doesn't mean 5 gigahertz, it means 5th generation. And down below, if you look at the years from the 80s to where we are today, it's just a technology. And if you look at each of the icons, it's kind of what it's encompassing. And 5G is huge. And 6G is not too far behind it. They're in the terahertz now. They're just going nuts with frequencies. Now, the easiest way to explain what people says, well, what's the difference between 4G and what's the difference between 5G? Look at the little, the animated GIF I have on the screen there. 4G is has a longer distance from the tower, but a shorter transmission of data packets. So not a whole lot of data. It takes a longer time to stream the movie Titanic to that 4G icon. 5G, you see the data is much fatter and wider, but it's a short throw to the tower. So what does that mean by short throw? Well, people have been talking now that there's healthcare concerns because now these transmitters are going to be everywhere. Well, that's true. Where my office is, there's 2 towers out back. I'm on a corner of Enterprise Avenue and Livingston Road, and there's 2 cell towers here. I can't tell you, and on Naples High School, it's funny because I live behind Naples High School, and there's a tower in my backyard because it's on school property, and I back up to the school. So where I'm at between home and play, I have towers everywhere I'm at. Well, that's one thing, but they also cover a long distance. Well, with 5G, that means you're going to see them on light standards down the roadway. You're going to see them on the bridges. You're going to see them all over the place. You're going to start seeing these little clusters all over the place, little transmitters you've never seen before. It might be on top of a street sign. People that are in 2 and 3, 4-story buildings where before the cell tower is way above your building. Now you might be sitting at your desk at the line of sight with the tower across the street on top of a telephone pole. And so basically it's aiming at your waistline. So these frequencies are going to be getting closer to us, and they're going to be a little stronger because they're also transmitting hotter, and they're traveling a lot of data quick. The need for 5G is a must now, unfortunately, because everybody is using it. Before, when we first had a computer, there was no internet. Then the internet shows up, and we're just doing a little bit of email. And we start looking at a little bit of websites. Now it's everything is connected, the internet of things or infected things, so to speak. And we'll talk about that in a minute. But because everybody's got Alexa and everybody's got, Apple's HomePod and Google's things, everybody's want to connect. Cars want to be self-driving. People want all these different things, and they want their content now. As you see now, this is a perfect environment for it. We're all home-based now because of this COVID-19 stuff. Well, that means more people are using the internet than ever before because we're home now. Kids are online playing their games with their friends, with Xboxes and things. You have people streaming movies, Netflix, they're catching up on all their series and shows. So a lot of data has to be streamed. It's not just coming to a home computer, it's coming to your tablets, to your phones, and to many other different things. So in order to keep it going flawlessly without buffering and being blotchy and checky or cutting out on us, they have to get data moving quicker. So 5G's protocols actually help with that. Unfortunately, it comes with some caveats, and one of them is going to be there's no definite standards built into this thing for safety or security measures, because they're not really sure how to come up with that. It's kind of like, let's build it first, then we'll add the safety later. Well, that's kind of how Windows was developed. They built the operating system and then tried to add security later, and then it gets breached all the time. Apple built a security system, then built the operating system. That's why Apple's a lot more secure than Windows. So it's the same thing here, because there's no real standards. Everybody's rushing to market to get their 5G technology, especially with the carriers, Verizon, T-Mobile, and AT&T, and a few others. And so what's happening is there's going to be a lot of wait and see things that happen. So I'm sure you're going to have people waiting, like man-in-middle attacks. And there's actually been some done already to 6 terahertz networks and 6G. That's the next generation after 5G. So they're already thinking that far ahead. But there's vulnerabilities, and I'm sure they'll close a few, but some new things will show up. The health concerns, like we mentioned. But you will get, the best part is you're going to have amazing fast speeds. Things will be streamed better, and it's going to be awesome. But in the same breath, we're giving up something for something else. It does cost a lot more money. Our rates on our cell phone bills, internet may go up, because cell towers we're gonna, instead of having, we'll say 10 cell towers in all of Collier County, you might have 120 small different sizes, but you need them, a lot of them, to keep this mesh network going. So it's going to be interesting. So we'll see what happens with cost. So that's what we know about 5G. It's here, they're building it, and more to follow. And then, of course, that means we're going to spend money in our pockets, because we're going to want that next iPhone or next computer that takes advantage, or tablet takes advantage of the 5G speeds. So we're all going to be, spending money to get a little further. And this kind of just breaks it down that, we have smart cities, smart homes, smart buildings. We're trying to do gigabits or gigabytes in a second. So, because we need to move data around fast. The augmented reality, where everybody's wearing those virtual glasses and seeing things that aren't there. I mean, we're moving all kind of stuff. I can tell you, I talked to recently, a long story short, the top private egg farmer in the country is here in Collier County. He does 1.9 billion dozen of eggs per year at his farms out of Iowa and 6 other locations. So that's a lot of eggs. And he's saying now, because of COVID-19, 2 of his plants that are they've got these buildings like over 600 feet long, that they've got rid of a lot of people because of COVID and have to be at home, and they've replaced them with automation. So they have computers that are taking care of all this stuff, except for the people that have to be live with the livestock and the chickens. Otherwise, everything else is automated. So you have to have a major backbone to move this equipment, machinery, and keep it all basically on the right flight path. And then, of course, everybody wants that self-driving car. I'm not looking forward to that, but that's on its way. And 5G is going to help facilitate making these cars do better. But that's it for 5G, and I can answer questions at the end, so we can move through this pretty quick. This stuff won't take long here. Basically, people are asking about, how do I know it's the right hub or port or adapter for my computer? One thing Apple's done, which they've been notoriously good at, is every so often changing every freaking port on the damn computer, so that we have to go out and add more adapters to things, as we went from, USB or SCSI to USB to Firewire 400, 800, and then Thunderbolt, and then so forth. And now we're Thunderbolt 3, but using a USB C type connection. So, and then of course we had 80 ports on these computers. Now we're down to like 2 or 3. And so they want everything to be connected. So at the end of the day, Apple may have a slick, pretty computer, but you got this wiring mess hanging off the side of it, so we can have all our stuff plugged into it. So honestly, I can say at this point, as we move forwards, we're starting to say goodbye really to everything in the past. So VGA is going away. We're getting rid of the old USB 2.0 or slower. We're saying goodbye to Firewire. We're saying goodbye to anything that's old and slow. We're moving forward to new stuff, which is great. But that means we have to add more things. So there's a lot of companies out there like Amazon, eBay, that sell a lot of different peripherals, and people type in things. And so my goal is to help you buy something more reputable and better quality that works, versus the stuff that's, might be 10, 11 bucks in garbage. So, and it doesn't work. So there's a lot of different things out there, and we're going to go through a couple different things. And really, you got to look closely to the specs. And if anybody has any questions on buying something, you can email me, call me, text me anytime. I will help you get the right thing. So USB-C versus Thunderbolt 3. They're kind of the same, but they're not. The connector is what's the same at the end that plugs into the computer. But Thunderbolt actually has up to 40 gigabits per second. It supports 2 or more monitors. It had, you know, adds more power so you can power more devices through it and daisy chain them, and it accepts more protocols. And protocols are, you know, USB, PCI Express, DisplayPort, and Thunderbolt, which means all these different things you plug in over one wire, it can handle all the different technologies. So in theory, I can have a HDMI monitor and DisplayPort monitor plugged in at the same time, and it accepts both with no issues. Where USB C by itself is up to 10 gigabits per second, one monitor support. It does give you the same power for devices, but accepts less protocols. And so if you look down in the bottom right-hand corner, you'll see all the different types of connections from USB and, you know, the colors and things. And that's kind of, you guys, with all the different equipment you have, that's just a natural progression as we go through things. The biggest things I try to tell people is, you know, the Thunderbolt 3 is great. It's fast. It moves great. But not all the equipment out there that has the ratings and specs are exactly able to do what they say they can do. So we're using one connector now, and we're trying to make sure we have the right connector for the right job. And then so you have to look at the specs to make sure it fits your computer and is the right thing. Some things we'll talk about later about power. You know, a lot of times people buy, remember the older CD drives, we had to burn CDs and DVD players, and the old hard drives all had a power cord attached to them, right? With these big bulky drives, they had their own power supply, and they had FireWire. So it actually helped, you know, talk to the computer and transfer data fast. Well, nowadays we're buying these small pocket drives that are teeny tiny, and yet they work off one port just fine, but you plug two in on one of these ports, all of a sudden one falls off or doesn't work or doesn't connect because there's not enough energy that the computer can supply back to these devices, so to make them run. And so what we're going to do is Thunderbolt docks. These are the new things that everyone's adding to the side of their computers now that they're plugging everything into. One of the things is, you know, you definitely have to have one or, you know, at least two or more ports. And unfortunately, well, one thing nice Apple's done recently, the new MacBook Air is actually a very nice piece of equipment. I was never a MacBook Air fan because I thought it was kind of a useless machine. However, they've made it better because you can, you know, basically customize it, bigger hard drives, add more memory finally. But they now have two ports for Thunderbolt 3 on the side, which is better than one port to do everything. And it's kind of a pain in the butt just having one port. So now that they got two, it's great. The biggest thing is they have to have power recommendations. So the brick itself, and you'll see pictures in a minute, it's having enough power to supply all the equipment plugged into it so they can stay connected to the computer and send and receive data without falling off and causing dirty shutdowns, or straining enough where it actually makes everything stop working, even freezing the computer. Some of these devices, they do what they call PD, power delivery. Some are strong enough where they can actually charge the laptop at the same time, power all the other devices, which is kind of cool. So, but you pay more for those. So it's important to look for the wattage factors. 60 watts on a lot of these older USB docks or Thunderbolt docks are not worth it because they're only 60 watts. Most equipment now is a higher wattage. So I recommend the low side 85 up to 100, 110 on an average. You should be looking for when it comes to wattage being supplied by these docks. A lot of these things, you know, and not everybody wants a big dock because if you're taking a trip, you want to lug this big thing with you. So there are other things we can talk about for that as well. And so we'll move forward just with some things. So this is a Thunderbolt 3 dock. And interesting enough, it looks pretty cool, right? So if you look at the left of the screen, you can see it takes SD cards, the micro cards, it takes all kinds of stuff. You'll see HDMI. I mean, it does everything. It's got Ethernet. And so one connection to your laptop, it's great, even audio output for headphones. The biggest flaw with this thing is there's no power supply. So that means when I plug that wire into the side of a laptop, which example you see up on the right-hand top portion of your screen, that laptop now has to make sure it supplies enough power to all those different things. Well, if two of those are hard drives and I got two monitors, it won't even work. You're going to hear the monitors will go black, and you'll hear the hard drive squeal. They're going to squeak, squeak, and you can't figure out what's going on. Or if it's an SSD drive, it's just not going to show up at all. And that's because it's underpowered. So when people go on eBay, they go on Amazon, they're going to look at these things and say, well, that one looks good. Now, the name of that company, I don't even know how to say it, but it's one of those Chinese knockoffs. And they've taken pictures of other people's stuff and put their name on it. And it tells you what it has. It's 1101 USB-C reader. It's great. It tells you can do all those different monitors. But I can tell you the monitors are not going to work, even from experience, because we bought things like this for clients. They don't work because there's not enough power to support it. So since there's no power supply, even shown in this picture, I can tell you for the price is $39, it looks good, but in reality, it's not going to work at all. So to me, it's a knockoff. It's a counterfeit. Do not spend your money on that. Try to go with a more reputable company, one with a brand name, and do some research on the specs. That's the biggest thing. So these are ones that would be worth buying. So we talk about names. So if you look here, if you look at each one of these pictures, you're going to see a power source, okay, where you're going to plug actual AC power into the wall. That means you got to plug it into the wall, but it will supply enough power, not just to all your devices, so they stay properly connected to your system. They also allow for powering and charging of a laptop, which is great. And these docks are nice because since Apple's taken all the freaking ports off the machine, this thing kind of adds them all back. So, I mean, like OWC, Other World Computing, up top there, I mean, it's got the USB 3.1, Gen 1. Some now they're on the Gen 2 ports. They have optical outs, which is great. You got Ethernet. You got Thunderbolt ports. You can do mini display port. Then on the other side, you know, there's SD cards, micro cards, and high performance things. You have audio out. So that dock is nice, but everything you're looking at on the screen right now is probably somewhere between $180 and around $300. So everybody's gonna go, oh, I don't want to spend that kind of money. Now CalDigit, the one that's the smaller looking one to the right, that's an excellent machine. It fits right at the bottom of the base of your iMac. It's real small footprint. It's a powerful little guy. It's got great write-ups. Does a great job, but it's $249. So, you know, something that's $39, $40 is, you know, people look at price and they don't realize that, well, because it looks like it has all those ports. Those pictures told me it does all those things, but I can tell you the last stuff we looked at didn't. These are good brands. OWC, Belkin, Wavelength, CalDigit, Kensington, Elgato, Monoprice. You're going to hear me talk about Monoprice a little bit. Monoprice.com. If you guys need cables, whether it's network cables, Ethernet cables, audio cables, go there to buy things because they work with all the big companies. So instead of going to Office Depot and spending, you know, for we'll say example, 50-foot Ethernet cable that might cost you $55, it's $12 at Monoprice. Same Cat 6 cable, same termination on the ends. There's just, they do everything in bulk and it's really good stuff. So you get a chance, go to monoprice.com, look at the stuff they have. They have cables and adapters for everything. Now, there's all types of hubs. There's different types of adapters. If you look at pros and cons versus a powered hub versus a non-powered hub. So an example, if you look down the bottom left, you're going to see those are common hubs that Apple would have. That's so you can plug into your MacBook Pro and have all those extra ports since they're no longer on the computers. And those are considered non-powered hub. They're just a quick connection and they get the energy from the computer itself. And usually one hard drive plugged in is not so bad. Two can be an issue sometimes, but you can plug a printer in because it's not so demanding in the network cable. The one to the far left actually has a power pass-through, so it actually charges the computer from the power, still connects to an HDMI monitor, and has a hard drive or some other printer plugged into it. So they're nice and quick. They're small, but unfortunately, you know, they're between, you know, $12 and $50 depending upon the brand you buy. But those are considered non-powered, but those are adapters you do need. Powered hubs are great. They generate their own power. They can power multiple devices safely, and they are more expensive. Unpowered, they're small, compact, but then a lot of times they just don't do very well when you try to plug in multiple things. So it kind of breaks it down in simplicity. And where do you buy these things? People ask. You know, the Apple Store sells their adapters. They're great. We know they work. Apple certifies them. They warranty them. They're good stuff. But Monoprice has the same ones just like Apple, and they're better price. And they're reliable. I use them all the time. So I'll pass it on to you. You can buy stuff to Newegg, not always cheap, but Newegg carries a lot of products. CDW, OWC, and B&H Photo. They've been around forever, and they buy a lot of good stuff. And these companies carry things that are reputable, so because they don't want people sending stuff back if it's junk. So it's kind of nice. And the best part of all this is there's pre-buying support. So if you don't know, call one of these companies and say, hey, I got this new computer, and this is what I want to do. What do you guys think? And that's important. The biggest thing with some of these hubs too, or docking stations, we got to make sure that they have enough power to charge your devices. Now, an old Mac Mini, an iPad Mini is very small. It takes very little energy to charge, but the new 12.9-inch iPads take a lot more energy. So you've heard of hubs and adapters. And last thing we talked about were docking stations. for big laptops and computers. These are great. I use these things all the time for the offices, and even I keep one on the road with me. Companies like Anker, Sabrent, Aukey, and Monoprice and Apple Store carry these things, and they're great. And they're powered hubs. And so if you look at a lot of them, usually 3 ports, usually toward the bottom of the machine, are for their smart charging ports. So they'll charge iPhones, iPads, other tablets, even your portable batteries that you would use to power your devices later. They're usually between 5 to 2.4 milliamps up to 3.1. So they actually will charge bigger equipment. And of course, as newer stuff gets here, these guys are actually making newer models. It's great stuff. Some of these, so like Sabrent, you can turn on and off ports with a push of a button. Others, they're just hot all the time. But every single one, that's why I showed you the pictures, they have a AC adapter you plug into the wall, so that everything you plug in will constantly have the power it takes to run whatever peripheral you plug into it, and it stays safely attached to the device, which is important, especially if you have a little bit of space and you got 4 hard drives you want to do backups on. You want them all to stay connected, safe, and get the right power they get, so without losing any data. So these are good brands to buy. I recommend it, and you can buy them from Amazon, absolutely. But these are good brands to buy. And if you, like I said, there's a lot of research done out there, and of course, sometimes you can say, hey, who makes the best adapter, best hub? And they'll tell you everybody's got their opinions. But these companies I use every single day and can tell you from reliability factor for my clients, they work really well. And I think you'd be happy with them as well.
Can I ask a question?
Sure.
Can you go back to the picture with the OWC Thunderbolt dock on it, please?
Yep. Let me see if I can, how good I can do that.
I think there's three slides back. That one right there.
Okay.
All right. I have the Thunderbolt dock in the top center column there. And what I learned after I bought this, because I wanted my Thunderbolt dock maybe 5 feet away from my computer from where it is now. And the cable that comes with it is only, I believe, about 16 inches. What I found out is that all these cables are not created equal.
Correct.
And that I could not get a cable that long that would supply the same amount of power as this 16-inch cable, which was very surprising to me, but things you learn.
Yeah.
Do you know if that has changed?
So that's actually a very well-known phenomenon. If you ever look in most boxes of audio electronics, computer stuff, especially monitors, the cable's 6 foot long. For some reason, 6 foot has been the industry standard for years. In fact, when people needed to have their printer further away on their desk or just away off to the side, 6 foot wasn't long enough. So they bought the 10 foot. You always saw a 10-foot USB cable. But if you went in the store, it said 10-foot USB, but it actually said 9.8 feet. If it actually went to 10 feet, it would stop working because the data just doesn't work. And then you'd have to buy what they call an active USB cable, where it takes energy and stores it and then runs it down a line so you can actually do a longer run. HDMI was the same way for audio. It's incredible because over even Cat5, there's a limit to everyone's distance. And that's why fiber optic does much better. But there's still helper units along the way to push data and send data. Yes, there are limitations to these things. And some of these are trial and error because a lot of this stuff is new. They keep bringing new ones out every year because there's always new equipment from all the manufacturers. And they're all trying to up the ante to give you better ports and better things. I can tell you a lot of them, that's why a lot of the cords are short because even the pigtails are certain lengths from Apple because they know that they're counting that with the distance coming in from the hard drive, whatever comes in the box. So really what comes from the manufacturer is really what you're supposed to use. My wife is the biggest culprit of that. She's got, I used her as an example for charging cables for iPhones. I mean, there's limits on how far your lightning cable should go. And she's got one that literally can go from the front of the car to the back bumper. And I tell her, I said, you're going to fry the phone because it's not designed for this. And if you ever feel that cable, it gets hot. And you get like, yeah, I'm waiting for the car just to go poof one of these days. But the kids, all the kids are connected 10 ways a Sunday and they wrap it around their heads. It's funny. But it's the truth. And people don't pay attention to that because she bought it at Marshall's because it was for $2 and it was a pretty color. So again, my wife, married to a professional, follows this line for this stuff.
Right. I just want to know, I know it has to be an active cable. are they making active cables that are longer than this one so that I can put this dock where I want to put it? Or do I really have to have it 16 inches from my computer? Is that the standard right now?
That would probably be the standard for that brand. I'm going to say it's for that brand. Okay. Because everyone's got different transmissions abilities. So you may pay one a little bit more. What I would probably do is, the good question is, we can ask, I would call one of the people who sell these things and say, hey, I need this thing to be really 10 feet away. Can I get a cable to do that? Or is it going to work or not work? And they're like, hey, they're going to know these things. And a lot of times I've done trial and error. The biggest problem for me has been, I have a lot of clients that have dual monitors, if not 3. And, like the wavelength one works, I can tell you, but I can tell you I bought 2 of these things and they say to support 2 monitors. I plug both monitors in. 1 minute they're working great. Next minute one goes out. And it's just not enough energy. And it's very frustrating because you have the distance of the monitor cable from the monitor. Then you comes to the dock. Then you got the cable from the dock onto the computer. That's all it takes into account. So if I would use a shorter cable, I'd probably have better results. But instead, I sent it back and got a different brand. And Wavelink actually fixed something that I had a problem with a plumbing company because they ordered some really good equipment, but it just didn't meet the needs because it did say 2 monitors, but in reality, the way it really worked was 1 HDMI, 1 display port. I couldn't do 2 HDMIs, and I couldn't do 2 display ports at the same time. I had to be 1 of each. In one respect, I actually have one of these docks running for one client's monitor, and they have one of those little Apple pigtails running on the other port on the side of the computer, just so they can have dual screens. And a lot of it's trial and error. I don't think it's as friendly as FireWire was, where you can daisy chain a lot more things, even at a greater distance, to be honest with you. That's actually a valid question. Actually, I'll do some research for you to find out about a better cable. Now, Monoprice does have lots of different cables, and if you look at some of their prices, you can look at a different lengths, and they will tell you, what the max meters are. And so you might actually get a better cable and see if it works.
All right, great. Thank you.
I'll look for you.
Okay.
Anybody else with questions?
Yes, we have Alan and Barbara with one question.
Okay, go ahead, Alan and Barbara.
Okay, I had to unmute. I have 2 portals to my modem. One says apartment 3 and one says apartment 3-5G. Now, when the repairman was here to set it all up, he said the one called 5G was faster. But then somebody else told me it was a shorter distance. So what's the difference between the one that has the 5G and the one that doesn't?
Okay, so most modems all shipped for a while with 2.4 gigahertz as a broadcasting frequency. Okay, 2.4 gigahertz bandwidth covers everything from microwave ovens to portable phones in your house to a lot of different things. Your Bluetooth mouse, your keyboards, all these things operate in a 2.4 gigahertz spectrum. But what 2.4 gigahertz does is if you have a 3,000 square foot house, you probably can go end to end all over the house and get good coverage with 2.4 gigahertz because it reaches out far. However, when you get to the end parts of your house, the speeds with surfing may be extremely slow until you get closer to the modem or the Wi-Fi access point, and that's common. Now, 5G is more data faster, but it's close range. So it's a short throw, which means you may not get past the living room, so to speak, from where the office is to have the internet, where you lose it and have to have either what they call a Wi-Fi extender, or if you use these new mesh systems like Arrow or Orbi, where it's you put a mesh network in and you have coverage and doesn't decrease your speeds throughout your network. So there's 2 transmitters on there. Most of the time, they set everybody up for 2.4 because they don't want the callback to say, hey, my internet's not working. For people that are savvy, which is a lot of you in the MUG group, like in my house, everything's set for 5G, but because I have a system, but my clients, I set them up on a 2.4 and 5G where it'll bounce back and forth, whatever's faster for them. Sometimes it depends.
You're saying anything.
So if my iMac is very close to the modem. So my iMac, I use 5G, but my iPhone, I sometimes use from the bedroom, which is a bit of a distance away. So on my iPhone, I use the normal one, the apartment 3.
Fine.
And on my iMac, I use the apartment 3 5G. Is that the right combination in your
Sure,
opinion?
absolutely. No problem with that. That's fine.
Thank you.
You bet.
All right. I don't see any more questions.
Cool. I appreciate y'all listening today. I know I got kind of a little bit of a hodgepodge. I'm just trying to give you guys a little bit of an overview. The reason why I brought up all the docks and the adapters and things is a lot of members have been sending information to each other, talking about docks and what's powered or unpowered and why one works, why one doesn't. And, you know, I've seen people say, oh, I bought mine on eBay. I really don't want you guys to do that because that's not a great place to buy things. You know, just stick with more of the reputable services. You can buy stuff on Amazon, but do your research first. You know, you get, you know, of course, obviously get the best price, but, you know, call places like, you know, CDW and Newegg and a few others, because they will answer your questions, and even Monoprice, they'll answer your questions on cables, and that's what they're in the business for. So they do a good job, and we all have to add this stuff to our equipment anyway. So why not get the best deals and the right stuff for the first time?
All right, Dennis, thank you very, very, very much.